I normally like to get right into the lesson without much small talk beforehand. But I would be remiss if I did not mention our young men who spoke last Sunday afternoon. Mindy and I were in Marquette, Michigan by this point on our trip, and we got to watch it on YouTube on our channel, and wow, just outstanding job that they did in preaching the gospel of Christ. And that's what they did. They preached, and it was the gospel of Jesus Christ. So proud of them, so proud of their parents, so proud of Evan for coordinating all of that, and just how uplifting that is. You don't know what that does to old people. That makes us feel so good. You're encouraging to us, and we appreciate that so very much. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. There's three things I want to do by using this verse as a jumping off point. Number one, I want to give a history lesson this morning. And then number two, we're going to paint a picture, or allow the Bible to paint a picture. And then number three, we'll have history and then an explanation and then a picture. HEP. Now, almost help, but I couldn't figure out an L to put in there. A history lesson, an explanation, and then we'll paint a picture of what that looks like here in just a little bit. Let's get on with the history lesson, and I'll go ahead and be the first to tell you. I'm going to try to rush through this because we're not here for a history lesson. We're here to hear the Bible preached. But I think this background will be really interesting to you. At least I hope that it is. And will help us understand what our job is as parents and also as Bible class teachers. And so let's look at a history, first of all, of Sunday school. A history of Sunday school. Robert Rakes and Thomas Stock, I'm just going to read these things that I found, and I tried to give you the source in each of these things, and I'll do that later on this first one. Robert Rakes and Thomas Stock first established a Sunday school for the poor and orphaned in Gloucester in 1780. Although they were earlier Sunday schools, Rakes and Stock have become the recognized originators. Their efforts led clergy and lay people to establish similar schools throughout all of England, thus setting in motion the Sunday school movement. Did you know that? In about 1780, I want you to notice the underlined words that I have in each of these quotes that I'm going to share with you. And so this is the history of the Sunday school. But watch this. By 1800, 200,000 children were enrolled in English Sunday schools. And by 1850, this number had risen to 2 million children in Sunday school. Now, something interesting happened along this lines, and about the same time it all came together, it seems at the perfect time, that also encouraged this. So just get those numbers. It was originally intended for the poor and orphaned, and then watch how quickly it grew. And you're going to see why. And young people, I want you to pay attention to this. I didn't work this hard when I was a kid either, so I'm not one of those guys. Although on our trip, Mindy and I found the path that all of our parents took on their way to school. We did a portage trail up in the wilderness, and I'm telling you, it was uphill both ways. I didn't work this hard, but watch this next quote I have up here for us. The Industrial Revolution had resulted in many children spending all week long working in factories. This was the working class families, the poorer families. Christian philanthropists wanted to free these children from a life of illiteracy. Well into the 19th century, working hours were long. We're talking about for children now. The first modest legislative restrictions came in 1802. This resulted in limiting the number of hours a child could work per day to 12. This limit was not lowered again until 1844. Moreover, Saturday was part of the regular work week. And then watch this. Sunday, therefore, was the only available time for these children to gain some education. And so Sunday school was a way to educate, and they used the Bible as the textbook, so to speak, to teach these children to read. Well, what about America? Let's look at the history of Sunday school as it came to America. It soon spread to America as well. Denominations and non-denominational organizations caught the vision and energetically began to create Sunday schools. Within decades, the movement had become extremely popular. By the mid-19th century, Sunday school attendance was a near universal aspect of childhood. Now, notice I got these next words underlined. That's something we pay attention to. Even parents who did not regularly attend church themselves generally insisted that their children go to Sunday school. You see something like that? I'm going to send my children to Sunday school. Working class families were grateful for this opportunity to receive an education. They also look forward to annual highlights such as prize days, parades, and picnics. Now, this next one, as we look at the history, you're going to start seeing a little bit of concern about some of these things and maybe some guidance that those in the early Restoration movement would see the need to change. Already, first of all, and I didn't have this up here, but some of the elite class didn't think that the children should be trained in this way, that the poorer class should be taught to read because they might forget their level in life. They didn't want them to rise above the working class where they believed that's where they belonged. And so there was some pushback in that regard, but this is the one I want us to notice. In 1848, the Millennial Harbinger carried a lengthy article by A.S. Hayden and Isaac Errett entitled An Appeal in Behalf of Sunday Schools. It began with an encouragement for parents to train their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Watch this now. Midway through the article, they said, every church, therefore, should have an arrangement to take not the children of her own members, but of all that may come under her influence, and teach them as a faithful mother trained Timothy. Did you notice something in those underlined words? It's not for our members. It's for the children of non-members that we can come in contact with. I think that's an important thing to say. Let's look now and summarize some of the things I want us to get from this first history lesson. Going to history class today. Number one, Sunday school began as a way to teach orphan children and the children of, quote, uneducated or illiterate parents. That's the purpose when Sunday school began, as a way to teach orphan children and children of uneducated or illiterate parents who were not capable of teaching their own children these things. It was so successful that even, quote, educated families desired to have their own children attend. Number three, even parents who did not regularly attend church services insisted that their children attend Sunday school. And then this last summary statement. Early on, it appears that religious leaders saw it being abused by parents who deferred to the Sunday school teachers to teach their children rather than training them at home. So early on, there was concern, said, listen, what might happen is that parents might say, well, you know what? They're going to get it at Sunday school, therefore we don't have to do it in the home. Watch these next two quotes by names you'll recognize. The first by Alexander Campbell in 1838. He said, we must awaken to the cause of domestic education. There is no substitute for it. And domestic, Brother Mosier, I'll say this for you so everybody can understand, means in the home. There is no substitute for it. Public schools, listen to this quote, public schools, private schools, Sunday schools are all good and useful, watch, but none of them, nor all of them, afford a substitute for the family school and parental education. And then this one by his father, Thomas Campbell. There must be pious, spiritually minded Christian parents before there can be pious, obedient children. There's your history lesson. And now let's explain our passage. Remember those summary points, and then we're going to wrap all this up at the conclusion and hopefully bring it all together. Proverbs 22, verse 6 again. Here's the explanation part. Train up your child in the way he should go, and when he was old, he will not depart from it. There you have the Hebrew word, a primitive root, properly used to narrow, figuratively to initiate or discipline, dedicate or to train up. Something I think that's interesting, and I learned this. Hopefully you may have already known this, but I thought it was really interesting. That word translated, that phrase train up, is used in 4 other places in the Bible, but only 3 other passages. So in other words, in one of the passages it's used twice. And in every other place, it's translated dedicate. Let me show you these places. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 5. And the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, What man is there that hath built a new house and hath not dedicated? There's the same word that's used in Proverbs 22, verse 6. Dedicated it. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. There's where it's used twice. Watch what also it's used here. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. This is what it's going to be used for. And then again, a summary of that same passage. And King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the people dedicated the house of God, found in 2 Chronicles. So interesting. I think it's interesting to see here that when it was first used, it was used in those other places and translated dedicate. It was something to be dedicated to, dedicated for its purpose. One of the things that I find is interesting in this is we're in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 5. The officer shall speak unto the people, saying, What man is there that hath built a new house and hath not dedicated it? Let him go before he does anything else. Return home to his house, lest he die in battle, and another man dedicates it. Listen very carefully, just by way of explanation here. If you do not train up your child, if you do not help dedicate your child to the learning of the things of good and of God, someone else is going to move into that house and dedicate it for you. Your child will be influenced, will be trained up by someone, somewhere, some organization is going to shape up, train up, or dedicate your child to the things that he will follow or she will follow for the rest of his or her life, perhaps. The verb, which according to the Arabic analogies is equivalent to imbue it, and you can see initiate almost in that next word, denotes here the first instruction that is given to a boy, his early education, and the formation of his habits. In that verb form, the very first teaching he gets, something that's going to initiate the formation of his habits. Looking at Proverbs 22, verse 6, still looking at that one phrase, train up, dedicate. The first instruction that is given to a boy, his early education and the formation of his habits. So it means not just we're going to have a one-time training session and hope from this one-time training session you'll get everything that you need to get. No, there's more to it than just that. The formation of his habits. There's other proverbs, pithy sayings that have developed over the years. Here is one that is ancient. It's been translated into German and then finally into English. It says, What little Johnny does not learn, John learns never. You wanted to say it in a different way. Here's one for us. Just as the twig is bent, the tree's inclined. As we try to understand a little bit better and explain Proverbs 22, verse 6. And then, as we said, we go back to Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 5. And the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, What man is there that hath built a new house and hath not dedicated? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. There's an explanation there of what that verse is. And that phrase, train up a child in the way he would go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We know that's a general truth. Generally speaking, the way a child develops his habits early in life is the way that he's going to go for the remainder of his life. We know that's a general rule. we know that a general rule is not true in every aspect and every time. In other words, we know people who started out well, who were trained by good and godly parents, and who left the teaching of their home. However, we also know people who did not have the influence of good and godly parents, who later on obeyed the gospel, and their lives were changed by the gospel. And so they overcame the lack of Christian instruction in their home. But I know all of us would agree, and all of us will admit, and all of us can plainly see that the start a child receives from the home is either a great advantage to them or a huge disadvantage to them throughout life. There's the explanation. Someone's going to train our children. Someone is going to train up our children. Someone who's going to decide and have an influence on the lives of our children. Okay, here's what God's purpose is. Here's what human's purpose is. What a human's purpose is. They're going to be influenced to go towards one of those by somebody at some place at some time. If we don't do it, as Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 20, verse 5 tells us, someone else is going to move into our home and dedicate it for his own use. There it is explained. But let's look at a picture. I like pictures. I'm one that likes to have it explained, but I also like to see it in pictures as well. Let's go to a passage that you probably knew I had to go to in this text, in this context. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6. You want to know what it looks like? We've explained it. We even looked at some Hebrew words. We defined it. We even looked at the other places that same word is used in the Old Testament. I mean, we got pretty deep in a short amount of time into what that phrase truly means, to train up a child in the way he should go, so when he is old, he will not depart from it. What's it look like now? Show me what it looks like, God. I need a visual of what this would look like in my home. Here it is, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Verses 4 through 9. Used to be known as the Shema to the Jews. Listen to what it says. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words, which I command you today, shall be in your heart. You remember what it said? You can't have pious children without what? Pious parents. Where does it start? I have written in my Bible, and I would encourage you to do the same, parents, especially if you're a parent of a younger child. I have this. Hear, O Mark, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Mark, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your soul. And these words which I command you, Mark, today shall be in your heart. Mark, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in the house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. God is not just a part of a Christian's home. He is the home. He's not just something we do when we have time. He's our reason to get up. He's our reason to walk in the way. He's our reason to lie down. And so he's the reason that we make sure our children have God not just a part of their life, but train them so God will be their life. You think about this and what he says here. You shall talk with them when you sit in your house. That's one thing you can do in your house. When you walk by the way, when you're walking away from your house, when you lie down, it's bedtime, and when you get up. What other time of day is there? I'm either sitting in my house, relaxing with my family, or I'm going to bed, or I'm waking up, or we're going out. What else is there? In other words, you see, He's a part, not just a part of our life. He is the life of my home. You want to see a picture of what it looks like to train up a child? There's the picture. Son, do you realize who woke you up today? God did. Son, do you realize who we need to live for today? Almighty God. So let me give you something to think about when you're going to school. Think about this. Think about what Jesus did for you on the cross. Think about that today. We'll talk about it when you get home. Son, before you go to sleep tonight, let me remind you of something. Say your prayers. Pray your prayers. Talk to God. But a reminder is, it starts with us. It starts with us mothers and fathers in the home. Let me give you another quote as we start bringing this lesson to a close. Again from Alexander Campbell. Everyone and every Christian family should read through the Bible, both Old and New Testaments, once per year. I left out that you can do that by reading about 3 1/3 chapters a day from the Bible. If you do that as a family, you can read through the Bible in a year. As an accompaniment to the biblical reading program, Christian families should adopt 2 periods of worship per day for prayer and the singing of spiritual odes or hymns. And Alexander Campbell did this. If you read your history, he woke his family up early. They had a period of worship together, and before they went to bed at night, they had another period of worship together. Alexander Campbell was just a man just like you and me. Nothing extra special about him. I love many of the things that he taught, but he's just a man. He's not our authority for this, so don't look at Alexander Campbell for a picture of this. Look back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, and there's your picture. But I do think this is a great example that ought to be in our homes of a period of worship together as a home. What's all this have to do with anything? You notice what we did. We looked at the history of Bible school. We can go through those summary statements again if we need to, but I want you to remember these things. Number one, Bible school was intended for the people who had no parents to guide them, whose parents were illiterate and could not read to them what the Bible says. Those people needed to have a Bible school. That's what it was intended for. Why? Because it was just assumed all those children whose parents can read, all those children who come from Christian homes, well, we know what's going to happen. They're going to get it at home. So we don't need a Bible school for them. We need a Bible school for those people who aren't going to get it any other way. That's an admirable thing, isn't it? But it was never intended to take the place of what takes place or what should be taking place in the home. Number two, we saw something else, that a tendency to begin once the Bible study, Bible class began to grow. Parents saw the importance of it. They saw how much their children were learning, how much they were growing. And so the parents began to say, well, you know what? Church is not for me, but my children could benefit from it. Those children are going to be educated in the Bible school, but they're going to have a hard time overcoming what's lacking in the home. We've known people like that, haven't we? Who would send their children to Bible class and not go and worship themselves as parents. That's an abuse of Bible class. Where are we going with all of this? We started a new quarter today here at the Forest Hill Church of Christ. A new quarter was begun today. And I know that we know this, but I think it's a good time to be reminded of it. You know, the purpose of Forest Hill's Bible School program is to be a supplement to what you're trying to do with your children in your own home. The Bible school program, and I tell you what, it's outstanding here at Forest Hill. We've got some of the best teachers I've seen anywhere in the brotherhood teaching our children. But listen so carefully. They cannot do the job that you can do and have the same influence that you can have in your own home. And as great as they are, they cannot overcome the influence that either your child is getting or is not getting in the home. Our Bible school program has never been intended, unless we ever erroneously think that it has never been intended to take the place of what should be happening in every single Christian home. It is to supplement what is taking place there. That being said, we do need to appreciate what we have here. And we need to thank God for what we have here. I thank God that our young children have the opportunity to grow up and to flourish here at Forest Hill, those young children that we have in this congregation. We have some things, and we're going to lay out some goals here as we close. But parents, you have, I'm looking up now because I know that's where most of our younger people are sitting these days. Parents, you have, by being members here at Forest Hill, a ready-made devotional, an easy-to-do devotional in your home every single night, an easy one. With the engraving heavenly truths that we are using, you have those cards that you can go over with your children. I mean, they make it so easy for us to go over these cards, and to talk about these cards, and to teach about these cards. And there's your lesson. Lead a couple songs, say a couple prayers, and there you have your time of worship together as a family. It's just made ready for you. Here's some goals, and you can add these to what you've already had for your goals for your family, or you can come up with better ones. I don't doubt that you can. But here's some goals that I was thinking of as preparing for this lesson. Adults, first of all, it starts with us. Dedicate yourself to completing our New Testament reading program that we've started here, and it's almost over. This last part is going to go quick. Can you believe it's almost done? We're now into Titus and starting Hebrew. We're getting close to the end of the Bible. And if you haven't been doing it, now's the time to start again. What we're doing is taking 5 chapters of the New Testament and reading those same 5 chapters every single day throughout the week. And then the next week we start the next 5. And so you'll have read the New Testament through either 5 or 7 times at the end of this year. Actually, the end of November when we first started this. Start that. Continue with it. Keep it up. Get strong in that. We have copies. Krista can get you copies if you don't have one. It's in the bulletin each week of the 5 chapters that we're on. Start doing that. Dedicate yourself to doing that, because you might not have children in your home, but you might have a spouse. Do you realize that's still a family? And your spouse may no longer be with you, but you still have you. Can you lead yourself in this way? Absolutely, that you can. Number 2, younger children. This is also to the parents and also to the younger children. So all you young children, I want you listening to me right now. Look up here. Here it is. Make it your goal that every single one of you learn every card this quarter in our Bible program. Engraving heavenly truth. Young people, are you listening? You can do that. Parents, it's going to take some work by you. I want to see every one of our children's name in the bulletin next quarter. We might have to give a whole second page to that, but that's all right. Young people, are you listening? Can you do that? I know that you can. We know that you can. Every single card this quarter. Teens, I started teaching them this quarter, and they're looking at me with side smiles right now. We are going to do some work this quarter, aren't we, guys and ladies? Lady and gentlemen. Have every assignment prepared for class and every memory verse memorized. before you come to class. Try to do that every single week. Try to do that every single week. Study on your own. Let these be our goals this week. I kept them simple. We could go a lot deeper than that, but I think this is something that we can do. These are very achievable things that we can accomplish together. So in closing, we've got a new quarter. We've got a lot to be thankful for. And if you know me, you know guilt works for about a short amount of time. It might work for a day, it might work for a week. But if a preacher stands up here, and again, there's times we need to be made to feel guilty because we are, so I'm not saying that. But that's not my purpose, to guilt you to try to get you involved in this. That's not it at all. What I've hoped to accomplish with this is to remind us that our Bible school program, if you got nothing else from our history lesson, get this. Our Bible school program was never designed to take the place of what every Christian parent should be doing in their home. We explained what it is to train up a child. We showed a picture of what that looks like. God is not just a part of our home. He is our home. He's the reason our home exists, and He's going to be the one to receive the glory in our home and everything that we do as a family. And then we set some goals that are achievable. We can do it, to try to encourage us to do this. There are so many advantages to living for God as early as you can in life. This morning, if you are not a Christian, will you become one today? Maybe you didn't have the advantage of being reared in a Christian home. I hate that for you, I really do. But you can overcome that. You can have your life changed by the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can do that today. Do you believe with all your heart that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? Will you repent of your sins? Will you confess your faith in Jesus Christ? Will you be baptized into Him to have your sins washed away? A brand new start as you begin to live for Him today. Or if at one time you did obey the gospel of Christ, but you've not been living as you should, come home. We'll pray with you and for you. And let's all rededicate ourselves to understanding the purpose of our Bible study and making sure it gets back into our home if it's missing. We can do it. And it's our job, parents, to make sure it's done. Won't you come all together? We stand and sing this song.